And welcome to another episode of Patriots 4th and 2. I am your host today, Derek Havens, and joining me as always is Mr. Steve Balestrieri. We are both PatsFans.com bloggers. Today we'll be talking about the Patriots' 15-10 victory over the New York Jets, as well as discussing the Cowboys game coming up this week and the America's Game Hour right at that 4:25 Eastern slot, and talking a little bit about a couple other things, a little extracurriculars. The Mac Jones situation, I think, is worth noting as well. Before we dive into that, I want to go ahead and say hi to my co-host, Steve. How are we doing today, man?
Doing well. Nice rainy day here. So it's a good day to talk some football and you know, at least we're talking about a win this week, right?
We are, and let's dive right into that, Steve. We're gonna go ahead and keep it a quick show today for our schedule purposes, and I want to go ahead and say first off, the most important thing, Steve, is that the Patriots got a win. Okay, they were staring 0-3 in the face, and it would have been a really tough, road to hoe given their schedule. Yes. Zach Wilson was exactly who we thought he was. And the Patriots were able to, I thought played incredibly well from a defensive perspective. I want to say they forced 5 straight punts to start the game, only 1 first down during that span. And instead of closing this game out with really an emphatic kind of hammer, they really kind of dodged a bullet there at the end. Now, there's a lot of factors that went into it. But, Steve, as good as the Patriots defense played, the offensive issues are still there, okay? The weather was bad. It's a tough opponent, really good defense. We understand this. But both things can be true. And at the end of the day, the Patriots offense only putting up 13 points, Steve, really frustrating that we haven't seen them take that next step. So there are some things to nitpick at. There are some things to be happy about. Again, I think both can be true.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, they missed 2 field goals due to uncharacteristic bad snaps by, Joe Cardona. We never see that. So, I'm sure the wet weather factored into that somewhat, but you're right. The second half, after their initial possession, the Jets defense clamped them down, and they just weren't able to generate anything. I mean, offensively, and it's kind of a playmaker issue because the plays are there, they're just not bringing them in, and there's obviously some frustration with Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, it's not for lack of trying on his part or the coaches, because they had him out there at crunch time. It's just, the offense, I don't know. I mean, the good part about the offense is their offensive line looked a lot better on Sunday, and they were actually able to stay patient and run the football, which I thought was very important. If you can run for almost 100, 57 yards against that Jets defense, I think that's a good day of running the football. Passing game still isn't there. Defensively, I thought they were outstanding all day. It was funny. The national media kind of slants things.
Sure.
Last week, the Cowboys shut down the Jets, and all we were hearing about, that Cowboys defense is outstanding. And the Patriots actually on the road allowed less yardage than the Cowboys did, and it was all about Zach Wilson. And it's the same guy that played the week before, But this week it was all Zach Wilson and no Patriots defense. And I think we're selling the Patriots defense really short in that aspect. That game against Miami doesn't look so bad now when you saw
no, it certainly doesn't.
Denver. You know,
Yeah,
and
I
the only
think the
person I
Broncos
heard,
are still gonna still recovering at
yeah,
this point from
yeah,
that beatdown.
I wonder how they'll play this week after that debacle last week. But
I
the
think it
only
could go one of two ways, Steve. Just as a quick aside, I think that could go one of two ways. Either you rally around it and you bury it and you move on, or that's the kind of thing that I wonder kind of poison pills your season. I mean, they were already a team that was kind of teetering, new
they were
head
struggling,
coach, et
yeah.
cetera. They were, struggling a little bit. Man, that could, if they have another bad loss this week, that's one of those things. Like, did you see the Garrett Bowles interview? I mean, the guy looked like he had just, gone to war and come home. I mean, sunken eyes, red face, looked like he was ready to cry or kill someone. I'm not quite sure. It
Probably both.
was not great. Not great.
No, but that the only one I heard mentioned in the national media about what the Patriots did was on this morning on Good Morning Football. Peter Schrager's mentioned that because he was like, Patriots held the Dolphins to under 30, and maybe that Patriot defense is better than we were giving them credit for. So,
The Patriots defense has been criminally underrated by a lot of people. For a long time. We knew that they were going to be a good unit. Were they going to be as good as they have been? I don't know. I mean, especially given the cornerback issues that they've had. I mean, one of the biggest things that they've had is that they've gotten such great early returns from Christian Gonzalez. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't want to put anything on Christian Gonzalez at this point. This is someone who we both liked coming out of the draft. We thought he fit the bill. And let's just say through 3 games, he's everything that we thought he could be. I mean, is that fair to say?
And we thought he might struggle early. And I'm sure he's going to have.
It is a hard position to play, Steve. I mean, and that's coming. I mean, let's be honest. If that shoe doesn't drop, I'll be shocked because
all rookies go through that.
Sure,
and we know that. But you look at the receivers he's had to cover in the first 3 weeks of the season.
A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and
Garrett
Wilson. I mean,
that's not going against anybody who's a slouch.
And he won't have another one this week against CeeDee Lamb, another great player.
No. Yeah.
So I mean, he's built to play the position in a lab. Great fluidity, very smooth, good head on his shoulders, and he's done everything to this point to again, to be as good as he can be. Patriots fans should be really, really happy. Just got to hope that he can continue to do what he's doing and stay healthy, and they'll be in good shape. He's been a big reason why they're playing so well.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you.
No, I was just going to say he's a big reason why the defense is playing so well.
Yeah. The strange reason he kind of fell before the draft was because it could be his biggest asset is the fact that he's very even-keeled. He doesn't get all excited or
a Stephon Gilmore-like demeanor.
Yeah, but teams were turned off by that because they want cornerbacks to be thumping their chest and all this, and he's not that. But he can let up a play and bounce right back from it as Gilmore does the next play, and I think a lot of teams might have made a mistake.
Well, it was that, Stephen. They were worried about his tackling ability and or his willingness to tackle, I should say, and that hasn't been an issue to this point either. So I mean, he's made some good plays. So I mean, either way, again, early returns really good on Christian Gonzalez. Give me your thoughts on. We could talk about again. The defense deserves its flowers for this game. They did everything they could do to help. The offense again, struggling a bit with a few different things. I'll say this about the offense, Steve. They have played very good defenses, and the weather has not been good. I mean, the 2 out of 3 of their games, the weather's been pretty poor. Crappy,
yeah.
Okay. They also played the Dolphins defense that I think is the weakest of the 3, or maybe even not. I don't know. I mean, again, Eagles defense, Dolphins defense, Jets defense, all 3 very good defenses, and 2 of those 3 in crappy weather.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to give the offense an excuse, because I think that they are not playing as well as I expected them to be, or that they need to play. But I am kind of looking forward to them playing in the Dome this week, Steve, in Dallas. Again, it's a good Dallas defense. I'm worried about the Micah Parsons factor. We can get to that, okay?
That's a big
But
factor.
But I do feel like people need to keep those two things in mind when thinking about this offense. Again, it's not where it needs to be. It needs to be better. But they've played in some crap weather against some very good defenses.
Exactly. And, I think, again, I mean, they're still very much a work in progress. The skill guys just need to step up. I mean, some of the plays have been there, and granted, there was some drops, and in the rain like that, you're going to have those. I mean, it's a sad. The Jets had drops too. I mean, it's just the way when you're playing in those elements, things can happen. Because I think back to that Ramondre Stevenson drop, there was a heck of a lot of green in front of him. And I was thinking that was going to be a really big play. I mean, we'll never know. It might have ended up not being a big play, but that drop was critical. Juju at the end of the game, I don't know if I would have stuck with him, but the coaches felt strongly enough that they did. And, we'll see moving forward. I think we need to see more of Demario Douglas because he brings that speed element. I still want to see more Kendrick Bourne too.
Yeah, no, I think both those, both those would be, good help. I would say the Juju Smith-Schuster thing is a little frustrating, Steve. I know that's been a topic of conversation. Look, they signed him to a lot of money. Clearly, they thought that he could bring some more yak ability than Jacoby Myers because they gave him the same deal Jacoby got, and Jacoby went elsewhere. There's been a lot of different factors if you listen to sports radio about why that happened. I just think they thought that Juju could bring more to the table than Jacoby could. I just look at it as kind of black and white. And so far, I think that they've been proven wrong. I mean, it's only been 3 games, but it's frustrating to see a player like Juju be worked into this offense when a player like Jacoby's worked out when, Jacoby didn't do a whole lot of explosive plays, which they need more of. I mean, clearly they need more of, and I'll talk about that in a second. But Jacoby got open, caught the ball, and got a lot of first downs. And man, they could use that. I mean, they could. I mean, they offensively, Steve, I had someone talk to me the other day on Twitter, and they were asking, why is the Patriots offense, like, it seems like they can start moving the ball and then they just stall out. And I said, honestly, I feel like the biggest reason, and I'm curious on your take on this, Steve, and feel free to disagree, but I feel like it's hard because the Patriots offense has no explosiveness. So a lot of their plays are 4, 5, 6 yards, and it's hard to put together scoring drives when you have to do 16 plays of 4 or 5 or 6 yards. So it's like if they've been pretty good in the red zone, and I'm sure they would love more trips to that red zone. But in order to get to that 20, if they start on their own 25, well, they still have to go, quick math, 55 yards. Well, if they're getting 5 yards of play, that's 11 successful plays in a row. That's a long time if you're not getting a 20 or 25, like chunk play, Steve. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like they're really missing that.
And that's been an issue the first 3 games. And I think that they have the players that can do that. When they try to air the ball out, there's just not that connection. Now, I thought the play to Douglas was right there. Probably should have been a penalty. I don't think the guy was trying to karate chop him in the face. I think he was just going where he thought the ball was coming down.
That was
but it
PI
still should have been a penalty.
It's frustrating.
But, when you look at those, because nobody's thrown more deep passes than Mac Jones so far this year.
They're airing it out with him. They want to throw the ball, and
because they can't get those chunk plays. And I think, with Juju, I just think that they're slightly off, and I don't think it's a big disconnect with that. It's just, you see where they're going with it. The guy's kind of right where he needs to be. The ball's kind of right there, but it's not all the way. I think they're close, and I think he will. Maybe Sunday against Dallas will be a really good time for Juju to start, showing some yak ability and catching more than one or two passes.
I want to see a few weeks, Steve, of them putting something together. Again, the offense needs to play better than where it is. Mac Jones is a part of that issue. I think Mac Jones has shown at times this season that he can be very good. I think during his career, he's shown he can be good. There just needs to be some things around him. But they're still lacking those playmakers around him that it's really holding him back. But forget his career, just these 3 games in the vacuum against good defenses, again in bad weather. I think he's still showing that he can be a good player. At times, it's just the consistency of the offense, the consistency of him. And again, the lines or the line issues, the defense, the weather. There are other factors, but we need to see more from him. I'm hoping that we get to see it this week. It's starting this week, really.
And that speaks to the lack of explosive plays because, what you were talking about, if you're getting 5 and 6 yards a play going down the field, I mean,
I'd like to see
that means Mac has to fit a ball in a tight window 8 to 10 times going down the field, because, considering they're going to run the football some, and that's really tough to do. And I think, that's part of it. What I liked about Sunday was they got creative with the 3 tight end set. Now teams are going to have to look for that a little bit, and they have different ways they can go with that. They went with Pharaoh Brown because he was just ignored by the Jets, which was a great call by Bill O'Brien. But what if they, look at Pharaoh Brown and go the other way where Gesicki came in motion? I think it was Gesicki, right? Where he comes in motion and everyone went that way with the defense, thinking it was going to be a run.
Yeah,
I think it opens up more avenues for them, and they just need to start clicking more with these, intermediate.
There's some new pieces, and there's some things that there's some things that that are going to take some time. And Chris writes in, do you think you need to judge Juju after the season's been completed and not just 3 games? Yes, I would just say I agree with that, but I would just say it's more for me, Chris. It's more of a eyeball test thing where you just have seen it. It seemed like there's been some mental errors, both in what it looks like route running. I don't know if that's a quarterback's fault or the receiver's fault, but when the receiver is brand new and the quarterback's been here, it feels more like the receiver fault. You say the mental mistake with the bad blocking. I didn't like his answer either. He's like, he's like, yeah, I was watching some Hines Ward's highlights and I wanted to go ahead and block better. I'm like, well, they changed the rule because of the player highlights you were watching, but whatever. I was like, Jesus, way to make a higher PR guy.
It was an answer I wasn't looking for, but at the same time, it was like, oh my God,
that's not the way to go with that. That's not the great answer you thought it was. But no, honestly, Chris, I just feel like you have 2 teams that basically have turned him, that he played for previously, that basically have turned him away. Then he comes to a new team. He's not 100% totally healthy. He doesn't look explosive, and there's been some mental errors. It just doesn't feel right. Okay, so we'll see. I hope that.
And it could be just a mental thing where he's overthinking it and it's slowing him down.
Could be 100%. We've seen that before. Totally. Let's go ahead and switch it up, Steve. Let's go to Mac Jones. Is he a dirty player? And I will say this: the nut tap. I know we've broke this all down like there's a Bruder film over the last 48 hours, 72 hours. I don't really care about whether he hit Sauce Gardner in the nuts a lot. I will say this, Steve, and I really want to spend like a minute on this anyway. Perception is reality. And when you stack up a couple incidents like this, you get a reputation. And I thought Devin McCourty's thoughts. I don't know if you saw this. I thought Devin McCourty and his thoughts on this were, I thought, pretty telling. To be honest, it wasn't really great. And I'll go ahead and read them here in just a second. But I just feel like again, it's like you have the Brian Burns ankle twist. You have what was the other thing that I'm looking for? You have obviously this incident. There's just been a couple of small things that have come around. And Devin McCourty said this on the Greg Hill show. We can't come back and say, no, this wasn't what, quote, I meant to do. There's a lot of players that have played this game and they're involved in and they're not involved in these things. So I think he does need to do a better job of finding his way out of whatever it is, if you want to call it the twisting of Brian Burns' ankle. I think Chicago, it was a high kick or on a slide or something like that, cutting my guy, the corner, Miami, Eli Apple, all of those things. I think for anybody, you can't keep defending the same things. So I think he needs to do a better job of that. I don't think he's a dirty player or a dirty person. And I think somewhere along the line in his competitive edge, he's doing things that you don't really need to have on the football field ever. And
there you go. I think that's a good way.
I feel like that's a good way to put it.
But
that's someone who's played
with
Mac Jones too.
That was a lot of sour sauce, in my opinion. Okay, that was sour sauce because
from what?
Sauce Gardner.
Okay. I thought you were talking about Devin McCourty. I was confused. No, that makes sense. No, yeah, I agree with that. I think this incident alone is BS. But
if he did cup check him, as they're saying, I watched his elbow, and I mean, it couldn't have been more than a flick. And I'm not going to get into whether he did or not. Like you said, there's a Zapruder film. We all know the NFL front office is full of ex-Jets employees. And, as I wrote on my post-game recap on, from the Sunday game.
Yeah, be sure to check it out on PatsFans.com.
Yeah. I said, if you're a Patriots player, blah, blah, blah. If you're a Jets player, you have to be incredibly frustrated right now because all this fellatory worship you were getting on the national media about Super Bowl this and Super Bowl that, and now it's as distant as it ever was, and you lost to a team that everyone picked to finish dead last in the AFC East for the 15th time in a row. I look at that whole Mac Jones. If you look at the entire sequence, Mosley throws him to the ground well after the whistle. And then there's all that stuff going on in the ground. And then Sauce Gardner comes up and he's in Mac Jones's face. I mean, and then he throws him to the ground and not one penalty flag.
Yeah, I thought the referees handled.
They were terrible, and they missed calls on the Patriots too. I'm not saying
they were bad. They were bad. They were bad all day long. It doesn't. I mean, I just don't agree with how they handled the game. I in a quick aside, I know that referees are going to miss things. It bothers me to no end when they don't call things consistently. The Pop Douglas PI, I don't like the Miles Bryant thing. Like he pushed Cobb and Cobb sold it. It was a soccer flop or it was a LeBron or a smart flop. However you want to look at it, he sold the crap out of it. Miles Bryant still pushed him. I can let that go. I can't let go of the Pop Douglas thing, and I can't let go of how they handled that. And there could have been personal fouls on both those teams during that scrum. You see that every time. Just call it consistent. That's all I want.
Yeah, I mean, if they had called the penalty on Mosley and then on one of the Patriots for responding, I could have lived with that. As you
call
said,
something, Christ.
But the one on Douglas, I mean, again, I don't think it was intentional for him because it looked like a karate chop to his face mask. But all eyes in the stadium are right on that because the ball's coming down deep. There's no one else involved in the play. And you're telling me none of the officials saw that? I mean, I just think, that officiating crew, they missed the a chop block on the Patriots early in the game too. I mean, they missed calls on both teams. It wasn't all,
No, they were
one-sided.
just
But
flat
they were
out bad.
just terrible. They were
Yeah.
terrible.
Well, okay. Look, we need to keep current things up because you only have a few more minutes. So what I'm gonna do is I want to take a break. Okay. We're gonna come back and we're gonna do the Patriots Cowboys preview. I'm gonna let you kind of just go off on your thoughts on the game and your three keys, and then you can drop off, and then I'll give my three keys to close out the show solo. But let me just say this though on Mac Jones again. No, he shouldn't have been even thought of a suspension. I thought that was hilarious. That was coming out yesterday when it's like the league's not going to suspend Mac Jones. I'm like, yeah, no crap. It's not, that was never on the table.
Suspend him.
Yeah, but again, I do think that he needs to do a better job of dispelling the fact that he is a dirty player. And Chris basically says almost the exact same thing. I couldn't agree more, Chris. He needs to do a better job of holding himself because you don't want to look like the Grayson Allen of the NFL, which I've heard multiple people say. You don't. That's not someone you want as your franchise quarterback. You want a leader of men, not someone who has a bad reputation around the league. It's just not a good look. But anyway, let's take a break, and then when we get back, we're talking about the Cowboys and what's coming up here in Week 4. We'll be back right after this. And we are back here on Patriots 4th and 2. Again, Derek Havens, Steve Balestrieri. We're both PatsFans.com bloggers. Just want to go ahead and thank everyone who's joining us live, who's wrote in comments, checking in on Facebook, on Twitter. Please be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. We appreciate everyone who joins us every week. We are on more of a time crunch today. Steve apparently has higher priorities than talking about the Patriots, which is just shameful on so many levels. But we do have to talk about the Patriots and Cowboys before he drops off, and then I'll just end on my keys. So, Steve, tell me about this week. And let me ask you this question before you talk about the Cowboys. Is this a good or a bad spot for the Patriots? Because I could talk myself into both. For one, the Patriots are coming off their first win of the season. Maybe they're feeling good. But they are playing a tough team that is coming off a crappy loss on the road. They were 12.5-point favorites. Took out a lot of people, like myself, in survivor pools. And they went on the road and got their ass kicked. I thought in the trenches. I thought physically just dominated in a lot of different areas. And they looked like a team that was disinterested, and Arizona looked like a team that was fired up. Now, after a tough loss on the road, they're going back home. So is that a loss that's going to go ahead and give them some motivation? Is that a loss that's going to kind of dwell? Is this a good or a bad spot for the Patriots?
It's funny. I was thinking about this morning before we came on, and I'm with you. It could go either way. I think the Cowboys were reading a lot of their press after they blew out the Jets last week. And I was talking with somebody. I think I was talking with our other co-host, Russ Goldman, about this because he was talking about the Cowboys coming up. And I said, Dallas always has letdowns when they're playing well. They'll have these games where they just look awful. And I was thinking they were going to annihilate Arizona. And then they're coming home and, they're facing the Patriots, and there was a good chance for a letdown there. This could go the other way. That could have been their wake-up call, or maybe they're showing some weaknesses that people didn't believe were there. But I thought Arizona's defense played very well. You said it best. I mean, Dallas lost this game in the trenches, which you wouldn't expect. But it was just it showed that they can be beaten, and they have some weaknesses of their own.
I think the Patriots can run the ball down Dallas's throat, Steve. I think they can run the ball, and I think that they will be able to pick the secondary apart off of the run game. My biggest thing is for the Patriots, if Christian Gonzalez and company can take away CeeDee Lamb and some of those chunk plays, and control the run, if they take away those two things, and then on the flip side, work off the play action, run the ball, hit those intermediate throws, I think the Patriots will win this game. It just, can they do those few things, to do it?
Well, in running the ball is very, very important this week because you have to be able to freeze those edge rushers. If they think they're going to run the football and you play action past them, then, you might get that half a second extra that you would to throw the football. And, right behind the linebackers and in front of the safeties might be the area to attack on this game. And I think this is a game made for Gesicki and for Zeke Elliott, playing against his former team. I think his emotions are going to be really high, going back to his old stadium there, in week 4. I expect Zeke to have a really good football game this week. I think him and Stevenson should be able to run the ball. And if they do that and do the other things that you said, I think they have a very good chance of winning this football game.
I know you're on a time crunch, Steve. I don't know how much time you have left. But do you have time for 3 keys and a prediction before you go?
Yeah, really quick. I think they need to run the football. No doubt about it. And that will set up play action. And I think this week, number 2 key is I think they need to get those kind of chunk plays. And I think you go to your tight ends, Gesicki, Hunter Henry. Dallas has a good secondary. They have some good players in there. But I think you go to those guys, you can get some chunk plays and keep the chains moving and control the clock. And third, they have to bring pressure on Prescott, and they have to do a really good job on CeeDee Lamb.
Okay. Who do you think wins this game?
I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, buddy. I'm saying Patriots 24-23.
Yeah, I think the Patriots are going to win this game too. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I mean, there's first time for everything, right? I mean, at some point I have to be wrong.
But all right, bro. But I'm sorry I have to run.
No, you're good. I'm going to go ahead and share I'll share my keys and predictions and then wrap it up, and we'll talk next week. Okay.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care. All right.
Thanks everyone for listening in.
All right. So for me, I have my 3 keys and predictions. So look, I think similar to Steve, I think it's incredibly important that the Patriots run the ball this week. I think if they can kind of, control the tempo of the game. I thought Arizona showed a nice blueprint last week, which, look, you don't want Micah Parsons just pinning his ears back and going, and that front seven is terrific. But if you can go ahead and run the ball down their throats, I think it really, really helps. Obviously, that's kind of a generic thing, right? You can say, okay, we're going to run the ball down the other team's throat. But I think Arizona showed you that you can control their game a lot better, and it's easier to have that front seven going, backwards than trying to go forwards, essentially. And so I think that's incredibly important. I thought Steve, brought up a good point, there. I think for me, it's really about protecting Mac Jones on the dropbacks, finding number 11 and Micah Parsons, because he is one of the top 5 players in the entire league. And if you can hit your intermediate passes off that, I think it will really open some things up. I think you'll be able to, go ahead and move the ball down the field. And really, my biggest key for the Patriots is let's try to get some 15 to 25 yard plays. Again, I talked to Steve earlier. It's so frustrating to watch this offense because they can move the ball, but if they have to have 10 plays to get into the red zone, well, your success rate is just not going to be good if you have to have a 16-play drive every time. You need to get every once in a while, you need a 30-yard play. You need a 25-yard play to get something moving. So for me, I thought that was incredibly important. Steve had a prediction of 24-23 Patriots. I'm going with 26. I'm going with 26-20 Patriots. I think that they're going to have to settle for some field goals at times. I do think they score enough to win. I just feel like the Patriots have played better than what they've showed so far. It's been some bad weather. It's been some tough defenses. Again, they're on the road. It's a tough defense. It isn't a dome, I want to see if the offense can respond. I think they're going to this week, and that's kind of how I feel. My final thoughts really on this game in particular, and really on the Patriots is right now I think that they are close, but need to put a lot of different pieces together in order to get to where they need to go, and they just haven't really been able to do that so far. I think what some people have lost, however, is that in the past, they have put things together slowly in September and in the first quarter or third of the season, and they built on that. And I want to give the defense a lot of credit for doing everything that they have to this point, but I do think that they have another ceiling they can get to as well, which is really, really exciting. So I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. Please, again, subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcast. Be sure to like, share, leave us a review. It keeps us high in the podcast rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. I know Steve Balestrieri, my other co-host, had to drop off, but we will be back next week with our full show. Usually we're about an hour, a little over an hour, so this week's a little more condensed. But thanks again for everyone for tuning in. Be sure to check out PatsFans.com for a lot of great content, and we will talk to you guys next week. Looking forward to it, and go Pats.